RC Nerds here, and this is just a little video on the teardown inspection rebuild of my Mugen MBX6R. See, I had it at the track, and this actually worries me right here. I hope there's no leak. I don't think there is. But anyways, let's go ahead and just get right after it. The only initial thing I'm seeing is the wing. Look at that. That is just I don't know how that happened. It just got real soft. Everyone tells me that I drive this vehicle the best. I personally think I drive my 810 the best, but you know, perception is reality, I guess. What I do know is the last run I had with it was probably the best practice I've ever had. And by that I mean for the first time I actually looked like a real driver. I raced my son against his Losi at 2.0, and I was actually leading for most of the race. I ended up losing, but it was pretty close. So I'm not looking to change much of the setup. Instead, I'm just going to go through, like I said, inspect it and you know, freshen everything up on it. I've got 48 hours because Saturday morning I want to get after it on the track again. I will be switching engines. I'm going to take this B6 and put it on my son's buggy. Most likely keeping the pipe with it, so the 2058 is going right back on his buggy. I'm putting on this clocked P5, Novorossy P5, as well as this Offna 086 pipe, and then putting this B5 with the 2013 on the trucky. Starting out with the front clip, simply ensuring nothing is bent, everything is operational, as well as changing out the diff fluids and the bearings. So here are the items that I've rebuilt so far after one day. The entire steering assembly, both of the pillow ball suspension areas, front shocks, front differential. Of course I didn't rebuild the differential itself though, but I checked everything. Fortunately, with this axle shaft right here being bent like it is, right as I was just about to put everything back on, I got a new set that arrived today. I was actually able to get a really good deal on this. Normally just the shaft itself, it's like 25 bucks, 30 bucks. I got two shafts plus the whole axles, everything, for I think $22. And of course rebuilding the shocks. The one thing I like best about the Mugen is its suspension. I love the shocks on it. And of course rebuilding the shocks. The one thing I like best about the Mugen is its suspension. I love the shocks on it. This is also a really good time to true up your links. They can tend to wander just a little bit, and it's so important to have them precise. Now onto the rear clip, and you can hear the pillow balls, how squeaky they are. It means they definitely need a good cleaning. Give the rear shocks a quick rebuild. As I pulled the inner hinge pins out, probably every crash I've ever had with this buggy flashed through my mind. However, I was pleasantly surprised at the shape. That right there is just Mugen quality. I've always heard that Mugen makes some of the best bearings available, excuse me, and I'm a believer now. Every bearing I've come across have been just in pristine condition, and these have probably 2 gallons on them. The front diff is in pretty much perfect condition. There's been no leakage whatsoever, and seeing as I'm going to keep the existing setup, I see no reason to even rebuild it at this time. Up until now, I've been a fan of the cheap bearings, and I say up until now because as I go through this and I look at some of the Mugen bearings, I mean, some that have over 2 gallons on them, and they are just in mint condition. At this point, on this vehicle at least, I'll use nothing but Mugen bearings. So consequently, I went ahead and I bought a set of all the wheel and pinion bearings. They are expensive for sure, but I think in the end it's certainly worth it because they perform better and they seem to last a little bit longer. So I'm going to go through the back clip now and replace all the bearings and clean everything up and inspect it. I'm actually not rebuilding the differentials right now. I want to keep them the same values simply because I don't have a rebuild kit with me. So in a week or so, I'll go ahead and rebuild them. But for now, just cleaning everything off, inspecting, making sure everything is good, which they are. I got the rear clip here complete. I actually did switch springs. I went to the firm Mugen springs. Now another roll test. So I can definitely tell it is much, much smoother now. And you can see that I'm currently, or I was, running on the B6, 2 red and 2 yellow springs, which are 0.90 millimeter and 0.95 millimeter. So now what I'm going to do is switch springs and shoes I'll use the same shoes, just new ones, but the springs I'm going to go with two 1.0 millimeter and two 1.1 millimeter. Now on the current setup with this engine, you can see I'm running a 3-shoe medium weight aluminum setup with 1.0 millimeter springs, and I love it. I think it's a really, really good setup. However, it's a different vehicle, and so again, it's just kind of starting from scratch. If anything, I like to spring down as opposed to springing up. And if you think about it, because the engine that I'm putting on this Mugen is actually more powerful, it makes no sense to do this. However, there is a little bit of a method behind my madness once again. And that is, whenever I put on a new clutch on an engine, what I'll do is I'll put the tension rate really high. Because what that does is that lets me determine if there's a lag. It's easier for me to hear a high RPM lag than anything else. It's kind of the same principle as with like a new engine, right? Because the factory settings are usually really, really rich. You begin to lean it out. Well, here what I'm going to do is spring down. Actually, in this case, spool down. And by that, you see these holes right here in this flywheel? What that will allow me to do is put some of these grub screws in there to delay the spool up of the flywheel. However, once we get this off the Hyper 7 to where it is like a true race machine, then I might end up just putting the M2C on this. Alright, so at this point, it's just a matter of throwing on some crappy street tires and get it started, tune the engine. Hope everything runs. Alright, so the good news is it started up good. The bad news is, not bad news, but I need to fix my link setup. You could hear there was going the idle, and that was just because when I was applying brakes, the RPM was dropping, so I just need to tweak it a little bit. So we got the idle fixed, now we tune it. Alright, so what we have here is a rebuilt Mugen MBX6R, simply put, an ass-kicking machine. The obvious difference here is I put on a Novorosa P5 with an Offnet 086 pipe, and this is a clocked Novorosa P5. I had a B6 on there, a stock B6 with a 2058. However, I have been just absolutely floored at how powerful this engine is. We were driving it in a Truggy, so I said to myself, I just got to try this in my Mugen. It doesn't look as monstrous with the this teal heatsink on it as opposed with the black one, but if you've watched our videos before and seen our channel, I don't care, because all I care about is how it performs. So that was the front one and that was the rear. And while the Mugen MBX6R and 7 vehicles are fairly forgiving, it is quite challenging to tame the rear end on this. So I'll kind of explain why I did what I did. And you can see that the brace I put on here is actually aluminum. Now, you know, while I do care about weight, it kind of worked out well because it was shorter. It turned out to be the exact same weight as this one here. But back to, I guess, performance. So a lot of people think just, putting an aluminum chassis brace on is an immediate upgrade. That's not the case in my opinion. If anything, it's going to be a downgrade because you're going to make your car heavier, right? So here's the way braces and things, stiffeners, whatever you want to call them, work, at least in my mind. This, again, is just based on what I have experienced myself. And it all has to do with chassis flex. Now, flex can be good and flex can be bad. It really depends on what you're looking for. Kind of what I've learned is the more flex, the more grip. Grip can be good and grip can be bad. Once again, depending on your entire setup and the terrain on which you're. And what these braces do is they help control the flex. So the best way to think about it is if I were to bend this, if I were to grab this at each end and bend it, I would get a lot of flex, as opposed if I were to grab it here kind of in the middle and bend it. Or think of a ruler. If you grab a ruler at both ends and you bend it, you're going to have a lot more flex as opposed to if you grabbed it toward the middle with both hands and tried to bend it. The same principle applies. Additionally, you can move the flex, right? So if you want more flex up front, obviously what you're going to do is use a shorter front and a longer rear. This as opposed with moving it back with a shorter rear, longer front. And so I bore you with all that to just explain that the reason I did that was because I'm looking for more grip here toward the rear. Now, whether or not that's going to help or make a difference yet, I don't know. Now, why did I go with the aluminum? Well, that was the only short brace I had for the rear. So I've decided to go ahead and put on a new buggy clutch. This is those composite shoes right here. Nothing against M2C. Again, I think they're fabulous clutches, but I've always wanted to try a buggy, so I thought, what the hell? And along with this clutch, I also got a new clutch bell for it, because you obviously want to change clutch bells when you're putting on a new clutch like these composite shoes right here. So let's go ahead and put it on and see how they work. All right, so I seated the clutch, broke it in, whatever you want to call it, and my initial impressions. The bell shims up very nicely. I got maybe 3/4, maybe a millimeter of play, just enough. If anybody would like me to do a video on, how to shim a clutch bell, I'm happy to do so. Excuse me. Not like I'm an expert or anything, but just due to the fact that I, have a lot of vehicles and I test out a lot of different clutch setups and things like that, I've kind of had to learn. And I can tell you that once you get to a point to where, you're properly shimming your clutch bells, you'll be surprised at how many different problems will go away that you might not have realized was due to improper shimming. That's the good news. The bad news is it can be very frustrating, because once you know how to do it, then you know, or how it should be, then you got to try to do it. And the best advice I can give you is just, make sure you got a lot of shims. These are just my clutch shims right here. And so it's, there's kind of a science behind it, I think, almost. I'm really sorry about the quality of the video here. This camera I have, I can't stand it, but I've taken care of it. I got this pretty cool GoPro camera that future videos will obviously be employed by. However, right now what we're going to do is we're going to take the Mugen plus a few other vehicles out and give it a test run. Well, something finally broke on my Mugen. This is the first time a part is broken. Shock shaft. I'd be surprised if that's the only thing, because this thing just took a beating of its lifetime. Well, it was certainly bound to happen. No vehicle is indestructible, obviously. And believe it or not, this is the very first thing that has ever broken on this vehicle, and it's been through a lot. Boy, that was just a clean break right there. I'll be shocked if that's the only thing on here that's broken, because like I said, man, I don't think I'd ever driven this vehicle that hard. I put probably 10-15 tanks. Well, the cursory look showed me that was the only problem, which is, again, amazing based on all the crashes that it endured. So I'm going to get it cleaned up here, and next time you see it, it'll be fixed and cleaned and ready to rock and roll. It'll be in better quality video as well. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.